Hi all and welcome back to the channel, and I hope you're all doing okay. Right, I've got a few more bits of content I want to bring you tonight. Hopefully you'll find these interesting and to get you all fired up ready for the race this weekend in Imola, because I'm quite looking forward to this one, to be honest. But I want to start off with the Chicago Grand Prix. So Formula 1 bosses have not signed a deal to hold a Chicago Grand Prix in 2026. Reports on social media earlier today suggested that a contract had been drawn up to bring a fourth Grand Prix to the United States from 2026 onwards. However, it is said that such rumours are wide of the mark, with F1 having no immediate plans to host a race weekend in Chicago. The post on X claiming that a deal had been signed has now been deleted. You may remember at the early part of this year, there were some trademarks submitted centering around a Grand Prix in Chicago. Here's the details of those trademarks. Now, that's not to say it isn't going to happen, and I'm not going to say it is going to happen. But again, if they add another race to the calendar, something else is going to have to go. But what? Then I want to move on to Nico Hülkenberg, because he's revealed that Haas team principal Komatsu gave everything to keep him with the team for the 2025 season before Hülkenberg decided to sign for Sauber on a long-term deal. Hülkenberg said he's doing well. He was really thrown in at the deep end and as the new team boss at the beginning of the year. Out of nowhere, in February, he had a driver's contract in his hands for the first time in his life. That's also special, and there are a few things you have to know and see first. Up until the announcement, it was great working with him. Also, in terms of coordination, I spoke to him openly about it a few weeks ago, that there was a good dynamic and that a decision would probably be made sooner rather than later. He thought he gave everything. The decision wasn't a no-brainer for me. I've already given it some thought. Haas is a team that made my comeback possible, but at the end of the day, the better sporting prospect for me, personally, is simply with Audi. And I kind of get where Hülkenberg's coming from here, because as much as I've got no doubt he wanted to stay at Haas, maybe, certainly if Audi weren't on the scene, but it must be nice to be a driver associated with the building of a team. I mean, it's not from the ground up, but you know what I mean, it's all new to Audi, and it's nice to be there from the start. So again, that'll be interesting to see what that's like when they hit the track in 2026. Then I want to move on to Stella, because he's called for bigger DRS zones when the Miami Grand Prix returns next year. Although Lando Norris won the race, the McLaren boss had some feedback regardless. Stella said, "I have to say, we anticipated overtaking to be slightly easier, so we were surprised to see it was so difficult. I think the DRS zone looks like it is ultimately a little too short, because you don't have time to regain the lap time or the distance you lose. Effectively, most of it you lose in the low speed section. Even in the high speed section, there are two areas preceding the long straight. It looks like you lose a little bit too much. To regain this in the straight, it is a little surprising." I wonder if that change will take effect from the Miami Grand Prix next year, because I think there were a few overtakes. Yeah, it's not as easy, but there were a few, so maybe it worked for some, not for others. And sticking with McLaren, because Zak Brown has set an ambitious target after their Miami Grand Prix win. Brown is chasing back-to-back Grand Prix victories ahead of this weekend's race at Imola. Speaking to Motorsport magazine, Brown said, "It gives us reason to think we can win some more races this year. Imola is a strong race for us. The fast stuff is good for us. There's a handful. Silverstone, I think we're going to be strong. Everyone is in a development race, so you can't write off Mercedes or Aston Martin, but sitting here right now, we have gapped them a little bit. We also know what we did last year made up the points difference from where we were on Aston Martin by the end of the year, and the points gap to Mercedes and Aston, it's not nearly as big." And talking of these upgrades, now we've hit the European part of the Formula 1 calendar, this is where the upgrades historically tend to appear, and that seems to be the case. I've not heard a lot about Aston Martin and upgrades, so that surprises me a little bit. But Mercedes, I've mentioned them a couple of times recently, they took upgrades to Miami. It was to do with the floor, I believe, and they've said that the upgraded parts performed as expected. Now, you do tend to sort of believe that, because Lewis Hamilton's strong second quickest in Q2, wasn't it? I think it was, but lost it all in Q3 of qualifying. So that looks like it worked out for them. But the second part of that upgrade package is due to be brought to Imola this weekend, so they seem to have understood the car a little bit more according to what they've been saying. So this, again, another interesting one. And sticking with Zak Brown, because he's claimed that Max Verstappen couldn't win the World Championship in any car other than a Red Bull, but suggested that there are 6 or 7 drivers who could be a world champion with Red Bull. Explaining his point of view on the Beyond the Grid podcast, Brown said, "Well, ultimately you need both a star driver and engineer. I don't think without a star driver you're going to win, so you need both. First, it does start with the car. People ask me all the time, is it the car or driver? And it's like, well, it's both. I think the way I characterise it is, I think there are 6 or 7 drivers on the grid that will be world champions in the Red Bull. As great as Max is, and he's one of the best ever, I don't think Max wins the World Championship today in any other car other than the Red Bull." And that's quite an interesting thing to say, probably controversial, and will probably get him a lot of stick on social media. If not, when he turns up at the paddock in Imola, the media will be chasing him down for comment on that. I might be wrong. I wish he'd have gone on to say what 6 or 7 drivers that was. I don't know. Give me your thoughts if you've got any ideas who he's talking about there. But anyway, that's all I got for you this evening. I'm going to dig around and see if I can find some more interesting stories that aren't to do with upgrades and stuff like that, but we'll see what's out there. But I do just want to say another big thank you to you for your comments, your likes and your shares. Honestly, it truly does mean the world to me. I know I keep saying it, I know, but it genuinely does, and thank you. And of course, if you do like what I do, please consider pressing the like button on this video, pressing the subscribe button, and also pressing the notification bell so you get those all important future warnings of my uploads. And as always, until the next time, take care.